All right,
Hey.
we're going to call this meeting to order. 1:47. 12:47. Thank you very much. And just noting that this meeting and the food and agriculture work that the CRDA undertakes is on the traditional territories of 10 Chalmette nations. And a note to attendees and the delegates that the meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the regional district website. If anyone would like to submit a question, you can email the ACRD at responses@acrd.ca, and those will be taken at the end of the meeting. So starting off, we need a motion to approve the agenda. Okay, we're gonna skip that for now while we're figuring out quorum, and we're gonna do introductions because there's a lot of faces. So why don't we start back there? Pat, you just have to push your button.
All right. Pat Deacon, City of Port Alberni Economic Development, and very fond of our participation in the Ag Development Committee.
Hi, my name is Claire Boudreau. I am here today with the Healthy Schools program with the school district. I am also the manager at the Shelter Farm, and I'm also going to do a little update on the Spirit Square Farmers Market. So wearing a few hats.
Awesome. Anna Lewis, I'm the manager of the Alberni Valley Food Security Society and also a member of the Farmers Institute and have a small farm in Squirrel Lake.
I'm Tanya Shannon. I manage the agritourism end at Shannon Farms out in Beaufort.
Helen Steady, SC70 representative.
Lisa Aylard, Stonehaven Farm and Farmers Institute, Alberni Farmers Institute.
Hi, I'm Erica Gold, and I'm with the Eat West Coast program that supports food security and sovereignty work in the coastal communities in collaboration with the Clackamas Biosphere Trust, Island Health, and the United Way.
I'm Heather Shobe. I'm the chair of this committee and owner of Eden Tree Farm, and I do some consulting work for agriculture for the ACRD as well.
Good afternoon. I'm Heather Zenner, Manager of Administrative Services for the Regional District.
Good afternoon. My name is Amy Needham. I'm the Sustainability Planner for the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District.
Good afternoon. My name is Alex Dyer. I'm the Planning Manager with the ACRD. Happy to see a lot of familiar faces here. I'm not a farmer, but I am an eater, so I appreciate all the work that you guys do. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for having me today. I'm Cecilia Addy, Manager Marina and Dot Plus Operations, specifically manage the Dot Plus Food Hub for the Port Alberni Port Authority. I'm very happy to be here and we'll get to see all you fine folks.
Good afternoon. My name is Patty Radcliffe Palmer, and I'm here representing 4-H in the Valley.
Good afternoon. My name is Ann Siddle. I'm the administrator for the Alberni District Fall Fair.
And good afternoon, Jenny Brunn. I'm the General Manager of Community Services with the ACRD. I'm here today to support Jody, who is online, and she'll be presenting the Solid Waste Management Plan. So hopefully mostly taking notes and just gathering feedback.
And we've got some people online. Maybe Fred, if you want to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Chair. Fred Boyko, Regional Area Director for Beaufort.
And Jody.
Hello, good afternoon. I am Jody Frank. I am the Solid Waste Project Coordinator with the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District. Sorry I can't join you in person today. I have a sick child, so I am at home doing my presentation virtually. So welcome, everybody.
We're glad we can do that in this crazy days. Katie, nice to see you.
I am also homesick. Nice to see everyone. So I work for Tofino Community Food Initiative, and we are co-facilitating the Coastal Foods Roundtable with Amy from ACRD. And I can bring forward some of the issues that our producers on the coast and community garden food security people on the coast would like to bring forward. Thanks.
Thanks. And Amber, you're there.
Hi, I'm also homesick. I have a small mixed farm in the valley, and I'm also a member of the Alberni Farmers Institute.
Okay, thanks. It's great to see you. And I'll just kind of say thanks for lunch, because we all got lunch today. It's kind of a new thing. We've been meeting online for a long time now. So it is nice to meet in person, even though I'm not much of a fan of sitting at the head of the table here. Regardless, onwards. So do we have a quorum?
We do. Good job.
Okay, we have quorum. So thank you, everybody, for coming. So can we get a motion to approve the agenda? Helen? Tanya? Say your name when you speak up. So it's like, save my poor brain. And are there any declarations of a conflict of interest? No, okay. And we received the minutes for the ADC meeting from September 12th. Can we get a motion that those minutes be adopted?
Just 1 second. You had a mover and a seconder, but you didn't actually vote on the approval of the agenda.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor? Motion passed. Thank you. And can we get a motion for the minutes of the September 17th meeting?
So moved, Ansel.
Thanks.
Second, Helen Steady.
Thank you. And all in favor? Motion passed. Thank you. And we also need a motion for the minutes from the ADC meeting on October 15th.
I'll motion that.
Thank
Helen
you,
Steady.
Helen. And do we have a seconder?
Ansel.
Thank you, Anne. All in favor? Great. Motion passed. Thank you very much. And moving on, we have a presentation today from Jody Frank, Solid Waste Manager, about the Solid Waste Management Plan in engagement. So go ahead, Jody. Thank you.
You're muted, Jody.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
And you can see my slides?
No. No.
How about now?
Yep, we can see them.
Perfect. All right, fantastic. So thank you so much. Good afternoon. My name is Jody Frank, and I am the Solid Waste Project Coordinator and Project Lead for the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Solid Waste Management Plan. Before I get started, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that the subject matter of this presentation represents the communities of the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District, which are located on the traditional territories of the Nuu-chah-nulth peoples. We respectfully acknowledge these traditional territories and are thankful for the opportunity to work, learn, and live here. So with mutual respect, Isak, and appreciation, Claco, Claco. So the Solid Waste Management Plan. Thank you all so much for allowing me to present on the Solid Waste Management Plan. My intention of this presentation is to really provide you with some insight on what a solid waste management plan is, walk you through the process, give you some background information that will help set the stage and highlight what has been completed to date, and take you through the draft strategies and actions, including some of the goals and targets that the group has developed. I'll also provide you with some information related to what you can expect for next steps and discuss how you can provide your feedback on the strategies relevant to your communities. So with that being said, the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District is working to update our solid waste management plan. This will be our roadmap and long-term plan that will outline how waste is reduced throughout the region, and how we can properly manage the waste going to landfills. So the plan looks at municipalities, looks at electoral areas, and our First Nations communities. So why do we need a solid waste management plan? All regional districts in British Columbia are required to have a solid waste management plan in place. This is mandated through the Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change Strategies and regulated through the Environmental Management Act. The process is set out by the province and outlines specific criteria that regional districts must undertake in order to achieve the plan's requirements. The purpose of the plan really outlines future programs and various infrastructure that we need to reduce the amount of waste we're sending to the landfill and optimize our solid waste systems efficiencies and help manage costs over time. So the process and timeline to date follows a 4-step process that is outlined by the ministry. So we started the process back in 2023, and as part of the first step, which is initiating the plan, we informed the ministry of the plan to, or our intent to undertake the planning process. From there, we recruited members for our advisory committee. And this is a group of really outstanding individuals that represent various communities through electoral areas, municipalities, remote communities, rural, as well as individuals from the business sector, technical members, as well as members from the educational sector. Part of phase 1 was also our first touch point with public engagement. So we, during the months of October through December, we launched a public survey. This was region-wide, and it really allowed us to gain and generate some feedback on what were priorities with the various communities when it comes to solid waste. Step 2 of the process was around setting the plan direction. So this included developing guiding principles. Guiding principles really act as our guiding North Star that help create the framework of the plan and really help us guide how decisions are made. And I'll touch more on the guiding principles in my next slide. Other key outputs of this step were setting goals and targets of the plan and developing a really long list of potential options that have now turned into proposed strategies. This brings us to step 3, which is evaluate options. So this is the phase we're currently in the process. So we've developed 8 proposed strategies that we're consulting the public on. And during this phase, we want to collect whether it be public support or just general feedback as we continue to draft the plan. After phase 2, after this engagement period ends, we will summarize the feedback and report back to our advisory committee to consider the feedback and continue to develop the plan. From there, the draft plan will be reviewed and brought back to the community for a last round of engagement prior to it going to the board, and then finally to the ministry for submission. And then step 4 is really about adopting the plan and having an approved plan for implementation. So guiding principles, as I mentioned, they were developed using the New Chel New Sacred Principles as our framework for addressing respect, taking care of, and recognizing that everything is one for the people and the land. So the first one is around ISAC, utmost respect. This is around the personal and collective respect for the community, its people, the traditional knowledge, the natural world, the metaphysical worlds, and other peoples and community. The second principle, UASAK, is around taking care of. And in this context, it's about taking care of our present and future generations, as well as taking care of ourselves and the resources provided by the land and the natural world. The third guiding principle Ishsawak is around everything is one. And this is just around the notion that everything is interconnected, interdependent through the wider world in a physical and spiritual sense. So this is a really great piece of work that the advisory committee contributed to. Yeah, it's just a very meaningful piece that I'm really proud of. Moving on to the goals and targets. So the goals and targets for the plan really helps support the guiding principles and help enable for us to measure the plan's success. So the 4 goals that have been developed to support the plan, the first being around social equity and local economy. So this is just to ensure that the plan is developed to provide equal and accessible access for all people in all communities across the solid waste systems. So ensuring that if you're in a remote community, you have the same access to diversion that maybe a municipality would have, while supporting our local economy. So as we promote new waste diversion initiatives, that we are linking in our local economy whenever possible. The second is around environmental and just avoiding impacts to our local ecosystems from our solid waste collection and disposal facilities, just making sure we're not negatively impacting the local ecosystems. The third is around education and just providing effective and accessible education to all audience types. The fourth is around economic factors and making financially responsible decisions. And as we move to our targets, so the first one is just being a little bit more aspirational. It gives us something to aim towards, but it's really about being able to take care of the people in the land by just using our resources wisely, encouraging community members to reduce, reuse, and recycle to get the most out of our products. And the second target also just gives us something to work towards. When we look at waste generation, we are looking to reduce that number to about 350 kgs per person. And this aligns with the number that the province is also working towards. So at the moment, the ACRD is sitting at about 545 kgs per person per year. So this is the waste disposed. This number is calculated by taking the total amount disposed as garbage and dividing it by our region's population. So the total tonnage includes garbage from not just the residential sector, but from IC&I and C&D sectors as well. So the BC average is sitting at about 506 kgs per person, with that target, as I mentioned, of 350 kgs per person. The second image here is just showing us how we track with our BC, other BC regional districts as well. So we're that orange bar in the middle there. This image shows us what waste is going where. So in the ACRD, we have 2 waste sheds, basically 2 landfills. So one services the West Coast communities, and that's located on the West Coast. And then we have one in the AV. So we've taken a combined number of what's being disposed, what goes across the scale. And in total, there's about 30,000 tons of waste going to both landfills. So the bottom section there shows you what's currently being diverted, and the top gray section is what's currently being landfilled that could potentially be diverted. And that is where these 8 proposed strategies come into place. So through the 8 strategies that I'm going to share with you, that really looks at how we can divert some of that gray area that's being landfilled. So with the foundations of the guiding principles and the goals and targets and the public priorities that were identified in the first survey, as well as identifying waste streams and where gaps and opportunities exist through the advisory committee work and our workshops and our working groups, we have come up with a very long list of options. And from there, they have been refined to these 8 strategies here. The solid waste team with the ACRD has also been working on a technical memo. This supports the strategy and really goes into the detail, as well as some other important information. And that's posted to the Let's Connect page as well. So I'll go into the 8 strategies. The first one being our foundational strategy, and this is around education and behavior change, and really having a strong strategy for education and behavior change. Without that, our strategies 2 through 8 really can't be achieved. So that is why we call it our foundational strategy. It's really, really important. Our second strategy, is around establishing or expanding resource recovery centers and eco depots. So this really looks at facilities similar to the AV Third Avenue the Third Avenue Depot, where we have the maker space, we have a restore component, as well as our recycling depot. So we know that whether you're on the West Coast or the AV, there's different limitations that exist. So the West Coast has more limitations when it comes to reuse and recycling depots. So that's why establishing something on the West Coast, we're using establishing for those terms. Whereas we on the AV do have some infrastructure already available to us. So we're looking to expand those facilities as we grow and as diversion options and reuse options become more available to us. It also looks at our remote communities of Banfield and Salmon Beach and how we can provide similar access on a smaller scale to those communities. Strategy 3 is around business and institutions and developing zero waste programs. So when we look at the waste going to landfill, we know that about 60% of waste is coming from commercial and institutional sectors. So this strategy looks at ways to be able to divert more of that material. Number 4 is really around organics management infrastructure for specifically remote and Indigenous communities. So we know communities like Banfield and Salmon Beach and some of our First Nations communities like Ahousaht are very remote. And we are looking at options where things like organics can be processed and then compost made available for community gardens, demonstration gardens to grow more food. So this one specifically speaks to more of the remote communities. Number 5 is around improving the baseline of multi-stream diversion programs and access to recycling organics and garbage. This looks at multi-family homes. So we know our apartment buildings and townhouses have limited options for multi-stream diversion. We also know that 20% of our remaining single-family households have limitations as well. This strategy also looks at events coming to our communities. So things like the Fall Fair, Salmon Beach, Yuki Days, just having requirements where diversion is part of the process when vendors come to our communities, that not everything is just going into the garbage, that there are diversions in place, as well as outdoor public spaces. So our parks, and then on the West Coast, beach parking lots, things like that, just providing more options for diversion. Number 6 looks to construction and demolition waste. So I mentioned 60% of what's going to landfill is coming from commercial and institutional sectors. About 30% of this can be from commercial and construction and demolition material. So looking at ways to build upon how we can divert more waste coming from our C&D sectors. Number 7 is around other material product end of life. And this is one of the strategies that I think is very relevant to the conversation today. This looks at different sorts of hazardous waste as well as bulky waste. But this strategy, we also want to look at how we can support our egg sector and what are some of the ways that we can help the egg sector divert waste or support infrastructure, or we're just really looking for your input for this strategy, looking at partnerships through Clean Farms and having those depot style collection points for farm chemicals and things like that. So definitely this particular strategy looks at that space. And number 8 is around residual management. And this is just a fancy way of saying maintaining our landfills. So this happens through various capital projects. We know we have an organics facility on the West Coast and just making sure we're maintaining that. And for both landfills, just making sure that we're continuously doing upgrades so that we're meeting those provincial regulations and that we're compliant with the province. So that really wraps up the 8 strategies and gives you a brief summary of what we are consulting the public on. We have done a number of open houses, in-person open houses out on the West Coast. We have one more in-person session tomorrow in Cherry Creek. And then various community presentations. We have our survey available on letsconnect.ca/SWMP and invite you to please fill out the survey. There is the opportunity to win one of 3 $50 gift certificates as well. And as I mentioned, next steps after phase 2 of this engagement period ends, the feedback will be summarized. We'll report back to the advisory committee and consider the feedback as we continue to develop the plan. And then that plan will be reviewed and brought back to the community for one last round of public engagement prior to it going to the board and following that ministry submission process. So thank you so much for your time and allowing me to share the solid waste management plan with you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jody. Are there any questions from anyone in the room here? Lisa.
Hello. When you're talking about farm materials, hazardous materials and stuff like that, I know, I think it was a couple of years ago, somebody came and took some industrial plastics, like for our silage and for tarps and stuff like that for some of our products. I think farmers be quite happy to bring stuff to a site because we don't really want people coming and going on properties for biosecurity reasons and stuff like that, but to utilize those industrial plastics, I think that would be a great thing for farms. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll just speak to that because I organized that. That's when I was doing the waste reduction education for the ACRD. And I was also the secretary for the Farmers Institute at that point in time. That was a pilot project and that was specifically for the wrap for all the like 1-ton hay bales, the round bales, fertilizer bags. And unfortunately, I think they did stop it. And I did make that comment to the people that were organizing it, that there was a biosecurity concern. The issue of trying to get your plastic clean when it's been sitting in a mud puddle and it's a ton of hay, at least, well, usually it's a whole pyramid of round bales. So, but it would be interesting if the ACRD could follow up on if that project is going to continue again or not. The hazardous waste one, they do it annually in Courtenay, Victoria, I think Nanaimo as well. It would be great if we knew when the one in Courtenay was occurring, if we could have a drop-off point, and it's something that I think, and I don't want to speak for the Farmers Institute because I don't sit on the board anymore, but there could be that sharing of information from the ACRD to the Farmers Institute to have, you know, maybe just one farmer that's going to do the trip down to Courtenay with a truckload of material for the old medications and all the other items that do get stored in really interesting places on a farm. Yeah. Anyways, I think that might address some of those, but I don't know if you have any further information on that, Jody.
Not at this stage, no, but we will look into that for you, for sure.
Hello. I just wanted to make mention that I had been speaking to the representative from Clean Farms, and they didn't really have it on their radar to bring an event to Alberni until I contacted them, but they seemed gung-ho to go. Yeah, but I love the idea of, even if they can't bring it here, maybe we can coordinate going there just to save on everyone taking their own separate things. The other thing that they had included was the tires as well, large tires and things like that, so.
And just touching base on organics, anything in most rural areas and stuff like that, organics are composted anyways, or they're fed to birds or whatever. I know I take my organics out to the compost pile and the peacocks see me going, and before I'm even back in the house, they're there and it's gone. So, you know, so I think for a lot of people in the rural areas, composting is something they do already. So I don't think that that's a big thing in rural areas per se. It might be more so again in the cities and industrial things. Thanks.
I have one other question. When you look at the stat of the 506 kilos per person, do you have it broken out into the Alberni Valley versus the coast? Because I know we did have that at one point in time, because with all our ICI on the coast, so that's industrial, commercial, all the hotels on the coast, that's a huge, like that's the big, it can really distort those numbers that you're presenting. So I'm just curious if you've got just the Alberni Valley stat.
Yes, we do. I don't have it right in front of me, but they're actually not too far apart. There's probably about like a 30 kg difference between the West Coast and AB, but I do have those numbers. They're just not in front of me, but I can definitely show you those. Jenny?
I don't have the number offhand, but Jody's right. They are similar. And it's interesting, a really neat point that Anna brings up, because we have so much tourism on the West Coast, disproportionate to population. As Jody was explaining, we have sort of this methodology for calculating out that number, and we use it to measure against other regional districts. It was a big problem for the Alberni Clayoquot because we had this small population overall and this huge amount of waste. And so we've been given authorization to use an equivalent population for the West Coast. So that actually adjusts for the numbers. So on the West Coast, we actually calculate an estimated number of full-time residents that would be actually living on the coast for the tourists. So we give them real heads, and that helps balance out the numbers a lot. But it is interesting too, and Jody highlighted this, is that the business sector from our data is like 60% of the waste stream. So residential waste is important. That's something we're focusing on, but this is why we're at this committee, and others is talking about those other streams and how can we focus on all of the areas that have solid waste.
Jody, I'm pretty sure you've been in touch with Synergy Foundation. Have you also had a conversation with the Coastal Restoration Society?
So yes to both of your questions. The first being Synergy Foundation. They are actually proposed to use ACRD as part of a case study for C&D waste and a toolkit. So they are applying for a grant for that particular case study. So yes, we're very much so linked up with Synergy Foundation, as well as Coastal Restoration. And perhaps, Jenny, can you talk a little bit more about the relationship with Coastal Restoration?
Yeah, I can. We've been working with them for a long time. One of the big initiatives they do is a lot of cleanup in the ocean. And so we sort of have a relationship with them, because what we're trying to do is actually pull the plastic. So they pull out boats and like all sorts of seafood processing, old stuff that's been abandoned, and trying to pull out as much as we can of those plastics that can still get recycled. It is the even lower quality than the hay bale wraps that have been sitting in the back field for 10 years. Like, this is stuff that's been sitting in the ocean growing mussels for 20 years, and it is so hard to recycle. But there is another company that is working on that as well that we've partnered with. That is Chloe with, Jody, what's Chloe's business name?
Ocean Legacy.
Ocean Legacy. And they are doing some magical research and development on turning that product into a recycled material. The solid waste is a complicated circular thing. So I have to tell you, the amount of effort that we put into getting something, and I want to highlight this because Jody's been instrumental in this, is the end point of this. So it's great if we're recycling a plastic, but then what? We just end up with blocks of recycled plastic. And so we know that we also have to be the solution for that material. And I just want to point out that there are buckets over there that I will hold up in a second. And they are from the plastic that's been pulled out of the West Coast, has been collected, cleaned, sent to Vancouver, and then melted and put back into a bucket, sent back to us. And we are now selling those at the West Coast landfill with compost in there. So that is so much effort put into this one small success story of actually getting waste into a circular economy. And it's those partnerships, Pat, like you've nailed it, because we can only do so much. We have a very small staff. We're doing our best. But those partnerships and elevating those are great. And I think that there's that same opportunity. We would talk about clean farms and all of those avenues here. So thank you for bringing those up. And I really got to show you a bucket, because like it's not that often you get to be like, we actually did a thing.
So while you're doing that, Jenny, Coastal Restoration Society also has a proposal for a small vessel recycling or recovery program that they're proposing to bring. They're looking for funding right now. They've identified a spot on the waterfront. They have council support for doing that, but it occurs to me that if they're successful, that we're going to have more waste brought in. And then the other group that I find very exciting is CORE, Kootenai Outdoor Rec Enterprises. And among the things that they're doing in building a whole new sector of the economy around outdoor recreation is they're starting to double down on the recycling of outdoor gear, packs, skis, kayaks, on and on and on, boots, all those kinds of things. And I think, well, I don't know for anybody else, but I spent part of the weekend cleaning out my garage, and I was horrified at how much unused outdoor gear I have sitting in there. So that's another thing that we could think. And then finally, Jody, I love the way you've developed the presentation. It makes it very easy to follow, and I think this is very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Anna, I have your stats here. So the West Coast is 525 kgs per person, and the AB is 548. And that was based on the 2023 landfill report.
All right, thank you, Jody, and thanks everyone for your questions here in the room. Are there any others? Lisa.
With that data, so that includes like appliances and electronics and all that kind of stuff per person as well, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay. One thing I'd like to say, I mean, I know that we're constantly getting new laptops. We always have to update our cell phones. Appliances only last maybe 5 years. I remember my grandmother having a fridge that lasted for 45 years. So, you know, putting that onus back on the creators of the original products and making things last longer. You know, if something's only going to last for 5 years, we keep filling up our landfills with those items. I think there needs to be a big look at these guys that are producing products that don't last. They're the creators, really. Thanks.
And if I may make one comment on that, and there are recycling programs for those, but that doesn't, I think the point that you're making is so important. There seems to be a move towards, you know, things dying right after warranty, 5 years, 10 years, it just creates this consumerist cycle, and it doesn't help any of us out. Recycling is not necessarily the solution. It's reducing the amount you buy, right? Because recycling is still very resource intense. And the numbers that Jody was referring to, as long as you did recycle it, it wouldn't technically be in that 500 number, but it shouldn't be ignored. So I really love that you highlight that as well, because that's what we need to focus on too, is those really bigger concept things, buying less, consuming less. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, just like, for instance, the incandescent bulb, there's one that's still going on. I think it's New York. There's a light bulb that's well over 100 years old. So there is the technology to be able to produce this stuff, but consumerism, somebody's not making money if you were not continually buying these things. So there could be a push by government if we really wanted to do more for the environment, but ensuring that products actually last a long term. Thanks.
Jody, have you got any stats on how much of fabric, clothing forms a part of that? I have made the observation to Paper Excellence that the very first paper mill in British Columbia was in Port Alberni, and they used clothing and fabric as their source material. And I hear what you say about recycling being an expensive alternative, but at a time when they're looking at consuming more fiber from the forest, and we've got all of this stuff in the landfill, I'm just curious.
And that's a really great point. Our last landfill waste composition audit will track, based on the sample size, the amount of textiles on a statistical basis. But so we do have those numbers. But yeah, to your point, looking at those different alternatives is very important and yeah, and noted. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, you bring up a great point. And again, agriculture could come in to help with that. Biodegradable wool, animal hides, hemp, which is something, but in order to get those things, we also need to have the processing facilities, which again, that always seems to be the problem with agriculture. You can start with something, but it's that processing of products that becomes a problem. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Is there anyone on Zoom that has any comments, questions? All right, we'll leave it at there. I appreciate everyone's comments, and interesting always when the Agricultural Development Committee receives these informations from these broad scale things that are going on like solid waste, and it's important to tie it back to agriculture and food in this committee's work, but really our communities are very interdependent and combined, and like maybe we need the mill here at the table with us to see how they can process skins and wool, and who knows, but that's your job, everybody here, to go out and talk to these things with these ideas. So I guess that's a little bit how we make an impact here. Oh, one more thing from Amy.
Hi, sorry. Thank you very much, Jody. That was awesome. And I just wanted to highlight again, the survey is still open on Let's Connect ACRD. Please do fill it out if you haven't. And I also have some feedback forms that I'm going to hand around to everyone. If you can fill it out and just leave it, you don't have to take it with you or anything, hand it in. We'll collect it afterwards. If you feel like filling that out, that would be awesome. And again, thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Great. Thank you, Jody. And thank you, Jenny. All right, so next on agenda, we have correspondence for information. Items A and B. A is the BC Ministry of Agriculture and Foods Animal Health Act as a general order. Maybe Amy, you want to touch on this?
This was just, I included it for information. It's more a concern for the large poultry producers in the Lower Mainland, talking about avian influenza and the general order from the provincial veterinarian. But I did want to highlight that a piece of news came across my email that there was a case of transfer into humans of the H1N5 avian flu virus. And so just to be aware when handling bird carcasses, just to be aware of sanitation more than ever.
Thanks, Amy. And item B is the BC Agricultural Climate Action Research Network's fall newsletter. And just for information, so that's actually a lot of information on there. If you look online at the agenda and scroll down to that newsletter, there's different grants and programs that folks can have a look at. So can we get a motion that the ABC receives items A and B for information? Thank you, Tanya. And is there a seconder? Anna Lewis. Thank you. And all in favor? Great. Good to see we're all on board. Item 7 is request for decisions, meeting quorum and options for the ABC. We did touch on this last month. And so I'm going to pass it over to Amy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this was brought to the Agricultural Development Committee last month, but as irony would have it, we did not have quorum in order to proceed with discussing. And so it was deferred to this meeting in the hopes that we would have quorum, and lo, we do. So the report is talking about the importance of meeting quorum for a committee of the board. Committees of the board are bound by similar rules and legislation that the board itself is bound by, and quorum is one of those things. Basically, it's in place, and Heather can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's in place to ensure that a minimum number of members are present in order to advance the business of the committee. So in order to look at ways to make it easier for the committee to meet quorum and advance business, there are some recommended changes to the terms of reference that are listed below in the report. I'm not going to read them out because everyone can read. And I will turn it over to the committee for further discussion. There's also some changes made in red in the terms of reference that are included to kind of give the committee an idea of how it would play out in the terms of reference, the change that was made. I'm not sure if we can bring it up on the screen. So, oh, sorry. Okay. We can't bring it up on the screen. Darn.
Can you just remind us some of the key ones and that were talked about last month? I know one of them was changing the meetings to quarterly.
Yeah.
I
Just
think
in a nutshell, the first change recommended is to amend the terms of reference to allow member alternates to attend in case the member themselves is not present. So basically, similar to the board, if an EA director isn't available, they send an alternate in their place that then has their voting rights. And the second one is to change the status of paid staff. So people that are attending the Agricultural Development Committee as part of their paid job to an ex officio member that would be non-voting, bringing more of the focus of the voting back to producer members and people that are members of, say, nonprofit organizations that are dedicated to food. The third option is, as Madam Chair had referenced, just that other similar ACRD committees, and just as a nod to the fact that everyone is very busy and it's difficult to make monthly meetings. A lot of committees meet quarterly. So the recommendation was proposed that perhaps the ADC could change to quarterly meetings in person in the ACRD boardroom. And there were some tentative months that were proposed if the committee wants to discuss this further. But again, that was just based on looking at the schedule of when other committees meet, because obviously the schedule has to take into account the fact that we only have one boardroom for the ACRD and the fact that farmers are very busy. So taking into account that it's difficult sometimes during the busy season for them to meet. And so there were 4 months of February, April, July, and November were preliminary suggestions for the 4 months if the committee decided to go that way. And meeting at the ACRD boardroom would allow the hybrid option to remain for people that can't make it in person. And also just pointing out that at any time, if there's any business that is of importance or is urgent, the chairperson retains the right to call meetings at any time. So there's no chance that something could maybe fly under the radar because we're meeting quarterly. I'll be in communication with whoever the chairperson is. If there is an urgent matter, they can always call a meeting.
There's that ability to do email votes too, right? Like if the board, no? Okay. It would have to be a meeting then. Okay.
I had a whole bunch of comments I wanted to make on it. So I'm such a policy person. So when I was reading this, it talks about, you can't pull it up, I guess, like share the document. Okay, that's hard. Page 43, 46, if anyone has it on their laptop. I was just trying to find it on my. I have it. I'm just for other people so they can follow. Here, I don't know if that helps you. It's pretty hard to see, but that's part of it. Okay, sorry. So on page 46, it talks about membership, and then it talks about the East Coast. Pardon me, Eat West Coast is one of the members, wonderful. And then it talks about on 4.2, it's also an ex officio. Oh, I'm learning that word. Under it says Claypot Biofuel Trust / Eat West Coast. So I wasn't sure if they're in or out when I read this document. Page 46 and 47.
They were proposed as being retained as a voting.
Right, but
I
they're
believe.
also.
Oh, no, they weren't because I had assumed that Eric was being paid to attend.
Yeah, that's correct. I do attend as part of my role in my job. So if that was the way the committee was moving, then that would be true. I would be an ex officio position.
Okay, so this shouldn't be on page 46 then in the list.
I'm just trying to find that.
Yeah, you got it here twice, so here.
Oh, sorry. I forgot to take it off the one list and I put it on the other. Apologies.
No, no worries.
Good catch.
So
Well done.
I guess my one comment on that would be that through the history of being involved with this committee over many years, the only members from the coast have been part of their job and role. So it'd be very likely with that change that there'd be no voting members representing the West Coast. Very, very high chance.
Maybe I included that on both because I wanted you to discuss it. That's a distinct possibility, isn't it? If it's the committee's desire to change the terms of reference to allow them to be voting, then they can be crossed off 4.2 and left in 4.1. So they'll leave that up to me.
I think that was, I'm not sure if it's all staff members, because wasn't there a line in there about nonprofits whose main focus is food and agriculture would be voting members? Right, so then it's a question of whether is CBT.
So then both, so any of the members in the past would qualify then from their roles.
Right, so I'm just trying to clarify. So then CBT or Erica with Eat West Coast would be a voting member.
Right. It totally works both ways. If that is the will of the committee, then absolutely, 100%. Yep.
I would just say more representation, the better. I mean, you want West Coast. So I was just document checking, but I think it's great if they're able to vote.
Absolutely. The only thing to keep in mind is that the voting members will be the only ones that go towards quorum. So if the goal is to meet quorum, then the voting members, it just kind of brings the onus back onto the voting members to please, please, please attend, because then that you're contributing towards quorum. So that's not a problem. We'll still have the Zoom option so people can zoom in. So.
Did you have more? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I think it's great. Got a detail and something to talk about.
So 6.1, it talks about election of the chair and the vice chair amongst the members. It's page 48 if anyone's on the thing. So it also says that the appointment by the ACRD Board of Directors in January. If we're not meeting till February, does this, it signify when we're supposed to vote for the chair and the vice chair? I was just wondering, because we can't vote in January if we're not having a meeting in January. So do we have to change it to February, or is that just for the ACRD board that does that?
Yeah, that was an indication of the fact that the ACRD board appoints the members of all of their committees of the board in one of their meetings in January. And so it's just indicating that the committee will then elect their chair and vice chair at their first meeting of each year. So if it lands in February, then it lands in February, as long as it happens after the board has indicated the members for that year.
And then 7.2 talks about a majority of quorum of voting committee members or alternates present, shall represent a quorum. I know you were mentioning that there's legislation or whatever, or there's bylaws that you have, the ACRD has, but it doesn't mention anything about a minimum here, but I believe you said something about a minimum. So did you want to put the minimum in here, or?
We don't normally list it in the terms of reference because it's listed in the ACRD procedures bylaw. And in there, it says that it's a simple majority. So quorum is a simple majority, so 50% plus 1.
And then my last comment was, I totally understand that a lot of the committee members have farms and other jobs and things they're doing. Do we feel that 4 meetings quarterly is enough with it's not every 2 months, it's like there's lumps kind of thing. So is that, is everyone good with that? I just wanted to reconfirm that. I worry about losing connection if you're not meeting for 3 months, but I understand that you can have a meeting if something important comes up, but I just wanted to share my thoughts there. I was a tiny bit concerned, but I mean, having less meetings is kind of nice for me too, to be quite honest, but I don't want to lose connection. I think you guys are all wonderful and work so hard.
Just to speak to that point, it is quite a difference going from monthly meetings to quarterly. The hope that I had is that changing it to in-person would actually help with the face-to-face kind of connection, because I miss that. Ever since COVID, it just seems like unless we fight to make that face-to-face in-person connection, it's easy to lose it. And so I kind of took this as an opportunity to bring it back. We can.
I'll just also comment on that even though right now it's written as they'd be monthly, I think our average is probably about 9 per year. So we don't actually meet monthly. Any other thoughts on any of that? Go ahead.
I just had one final note, that may be more West Coast applicable. The idea of alternates always sounds like a great idea, but in practice can be very difficult. I work with a lot of boards and committees, and on the West Coast, often someone who cannot be in attendance, their alternates for the same reason cannot, whether it is weather, travel, events, or community closures. So while more West Coast voting reps would be amazing, an alternative could be having a West Coast rep that multiple individuals or organizations could share in terms of alternates. So just throwing that out there. Not sure how it works with other committees at the ACRD, if that's successful with alternates, but just a caution.
Yeah, we have alternates on our Alberni Valley Advisory Airport Committee that Pat's on, and that seems to work well. I think it's an opportunity, like I think if there was a very important decision that the committee wanted to move forward, I think, you or your alternate would at least attend part of the meeting to help that decision move forward. So yeah, we have had good experience with it in the past, but it's totally up to the committee.
Fred, I see you there on screen.
Sorry about that, my mouse was lost. With regard to alternates, one key thing is to find an alternate that is not on your same schedule, but is available. So I have found someone, for me being a director alternate, that you'll see from time to time, that we are not scheduled, linked up, or anything even remotely like that. So we have 100% coverage of all board meetings. So just keep that in mind when you come to alternates. Thank you.
I guess my question regarding alternates probably for Heather is it an assigned single person alternate? Or can they, on the day, if they're sick, can they phone someone and say, you're standing in for me as my alternate and send a different person depending on who's available?
No, it would be preferred if it was the same alternate all of the time, so that we have their contact information. We know how to send them the invite and send them the agenda. Yeah.
I could just speak a little bit to the frequency, or like getting back to how often the meetings are. I found this past year, well, the past couple of years, that with like at the shelter farm, being manager there, it's been so busy that I think once a month is not really doable. And for me, it might be different for everyone else, but like the service out there, we don't have, I couldn't sit on a Zoom call from the farm, and I have to be there like all the time during the busy season. So once a month or once every 3 months or quarter, well, yeah, that's 3 months, right? I'm like, oh, doing math in front of a lot of people, would be more doable to be in person, just to set that time aside. And then, yeah, for me, the emails, there's a lot of them and they've gotten lost. That's why nobody's seen me in a while. Just get buried in like a lot of emails, and then it's a lot of invites, and just, I think 3 months would work better for me on that schedule.
I'd love to hear some more thoughts about the quarterly issue or any others. I see Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, just with regards to policy and changes and stuff like that. I know the Ag Advisory doesn't get used as much, but that's where policy is actually supposed to be going to. We don't have enough people that show up for those particular ones, I know, but from what I understand, it's supposed to be producers on that particular committee, but those policy, any important things are technically supposed to be going through that committee. So, and the Farmers Institute, I think anything that's coming up with regards to policy changes or something with the government and stuff like that should really also be going directly to the Farmers Institute as well. Thanks.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but was there not a change made in the past to maintain that connection with the Ag Advisory Committee, where all of those members were invited to the Ag Development Committee meetings?
Yeah, when I was chair of the ADC, I always CC'd all the members of the ACC, and there was an open invitation to them to attend meetings. Larry, he showed up quite a few times and helped out at the Island Ag Show. So there was that, but I left that role. I don't know where the invites go now.
Just as a point of procedure, I'm not sure how that would affect the quorum issue, or if we wanted to go that way to maintain that connection with the Ag Advisory Committee, if there could be something put in the terms of reference that said that ex officio members would be all members of the Agricultural Advisory Committee would automatically be invited to maintain that connection. I don't know.
Well, I'll just go a little further on that, because it wasn't just Anna emailing everyone. That came through the Systems Change Project when Colin Dring came and did some engagement with both the ADC and the AAC, and talking about how can we strengthen these committees and who's doing what and what's the purpose and how are we going to work together. And it was actually a formal decision and process that the AAC was invited to all of these meetings to participate. So I'm not sure if they are right now, because I don't think we see the emails anymore, but that is definitely a decision. And so, yeah, there would be a question about how that works with quorum. And I guess maybe going back to the AAC as well, with the changes for these terms of references, or somehow engaging them and asking what their thoughts are.
What I would recommend is, if you want to add them as ex officio members, that do that as a part of your update to your terms of reference today. Like, we can include that in the resolution if that's desired, and then they will always get the invite and always get the information for these committees and be invited to come and attend.
And how does that affect if someone's a member of both? Because I think Lisa is, so she would still retain her voting rights as an ADC member. Okay, so you're not losing anyone and you could be gaining more producer input, just non-voting. And then if they wanted to join, they could. It's pretty, okay, that's cool. To speak to the idea of the terms of reference and things for the AAC. So, as most of you probably know, this position's the first, I'm the first person in this position. And so part of what I've been doing is going through all of the committees and the working groups and things that I'm responsible for. And there's been terms of reference updates for the, I think, Council of Agricultural Water Supply, I think was first. And the Coastal Agricultural Roundtable, which then became the Coastal Foods Roundtable. There's now been two go through on the two terms of reference updates go through for the Agricultural Development Committee. I promise you, the Agriculture the Advisory Committee is there. I have not forgotten about them. They are coming. It's just with me being one person, it just takes longer than sometimes you hope, but definitely want to look at that next and the terms of reference and membership and to see what we can do. But from where I sit, like maintaining that connection for one person can be taxing. So if the committee is amenable to adding them as ex officio members, just to invite them across the board, that would be great, I think.
Yeah, just so that the new people that are here on this board or committee, the Ag Advisory was actually the parent committee. The Ag Development Committee was developed to develop the agricultural plan in 2011. So, and most of the members that sat on the Ag Advisory, like Bill Thompson, Bob Collins, all the old time farmers, they were the instigators to help develop the agricultural plan that was developed in 2011. Thanks.
So we have the motion that the ADC recommends the terms of references as amended. That would mean some changes to how, I think one of the biggest things is just in terms of how often we're meeting. So I'm still curious about that. My brain goes to, what are we trying to do as a committee? What's our purpose? And how often might we have to meet in order to do that? And what are we doing during the meetings? So that might be a bit of a different conversation either. Also, but part of my thinking around this committee and something that I'd like to see personally is more involvement with the community at large. So if I think of it as us meeting every 3 or 4 months and also having a chance to engage with other people or hear from other producers or newcomers that are interested in producing or things like that in the community, then it's a great opportunity to bring people together and talk about food and ag on a bigger level. Only doing that 4 times a year makes more sense than if we're doing that every month. And then the other thing that I've noticed at the meetings is that we go around and everybody gives their reports and updates, and that's just information that could be shared like in paper, it could be written. So what else do we want to bring to the meetings to actually make them more kind of progressive and moving forward with new things rather than just recapping what we're all doing? And I'm not sure if that's part of this particular discussion, or maybe that's another discussion about how we want these meetings to look. But I think it is relevant specifically in terms of how often we're meeting. And so again, just put that out there. And then I guess we can ask if people want to make this motion or if there's any more discussion.
Hi, me again. So just for kind of everyone's information, as a committee of the board, this committee is one of the more prescribed in how it has to be administered. The Council for Agricultural Water Supply and the Coastal Foods Roundtable, they're working groups for the ACRD. And because they don't fall the same way under the procedures bylaw, they're not prescribed in exactly the same way. So the procedures bylaw, super interesting read if you're ever bored, I promise. But it outlines things like the requirement for live streaming and for recording and how the agendas have to go out and the way that they're structured and the timelines of things and stuff like that. It is very set because it is an official committee of the board. But what it does give this committee is the ability to pass, it's like a direct line to the board of the ECRD. So when we're discussing things here and a motion goes to the board, it goes on to the next board agenda and the board then discusses, and the board is the decision makers for the ECRD. So things that come out from the working groups, for example, they don't have the direct line, but they could bring it then to the ADC that would then bring it forward to the board. So that line of access to the decision makers for the ACRD is maintained, then that is that's one, I would say, one of the most important things from my perspective that this committee has is that ability to access the board who make the decisions. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I totally agree with you, and I think that's what makes this worthwhile, even sitting here in front of this giant table and trying to do this chair thing. You know, we have a conduit, we have a voice, we can actually make things happen. And so it actually ties into, you know, where might have a concern with making it only every 3 months, because what if things happen in between and nobody knows about it. And so then we can't actually bring that forward, a motion or any advisory services to the board. So the question being, how would we, and I realize that the chair could call a meeting at any time, but how do we ensure that the chair or other committee members who want to contact the chair have the information that they need in order to say, hey, we need to call a meeting in between these? And that would be the question. Go ahead, Amy. And I see Fred too also.
Oh, do you want me to go first?
Go ahead, Amy. Yeah.
Thank you. This might be something that might have changed since my position became an embedded staff position at the ECRD, is that I am here and I do talk to everyone ongoing. And so if there are things that come up, I can be that contact with the chairperson of the time, whoever it is, because a new chair can be selected every year. And if that is amenable to the committee, then I'm well able to keep my ear to the ground. And if there's anything important coming up, I will be happy to contact the chairperson and discuss maybe the importance of calling a special meeting over Zoom so that a decision can be made.
Thanks. And go ahead, Fred.
I have a similar comment, is in I'm always available and reachable, and I can always get to my email within a day. And if something ever needs that's important and needs to get brought to the board, we meet every 2 weeks, plus or minus, and we can always put something on the agenda and deal with it. So there's always an avenue for information to be passed on in a timely manner if required. Thank you.
Thanks. So it sounds like, and this is not a bad thing, but we basically trust the ACRD to give us the information that we need or that we might want or might be interested in, and each other, right? Go ahead, Tanya.
Thanks. Well, I was just gonna say, I don't mind if we go quarterly because it's a lot of meetings and things get busy. But I find that when there's news or grant opportunities, I find that Amy emails that out quite often anyway. So if those are the little things that we're not getting together and spending time on, like to meet to discuss, I'm okay with that little stuff. And then we're saving up the important stuff for when we're actually getting together. So I think it would work.
That's a really good point. And actually like a channel for information like newsletters or something like that could be useful, which is something that I was putting up for a while. And so those kinds of, and I mean, the Farmers Institute puts out information. So yeah, as long as people are getting information in between, and that's a good point.
Yeah, I would be very thankful for the opportunity to move to quarterly, especially since the third Wednesday of every month is a Food Security Society's meeting. So sometimes it seems like a total recap, you know, it's like, oh yeah, okay. But I think quarterly for this group is good. And Amy, you send out a ton of information in between our meetings all the time. I feel like I get double duty with the stuff you forward from Tom Odell, our provincial rep. The Farmers Institute also sends it out. And I think there is that good conduit. Fred, you made a great point about the electoral directors meeting every 2 weeks. If there was that need, we can't have a email vote, but that doesn't mean the chair or Amy can't send a email out to this group, just stating there's a heads up and potential to call a meeting should something arise. So I welcome the quarterly, although I do, and especially if it's in person with food.
Okay, thanks. So is there any other points? I did hear a couple of changes potentially that we could include in a motion, I guess, one of which is, go ahead, Heather, you do.
All right, so the motion that I have, that with the couple of changes you talked about, is that the ADC recommend to the ACRD Board of Directors to adopt the terms of reference, including leaving East West Coast as a voting member and add Agriculture Advisory Committee members as ex officio non-voting members.
All right, so there's the motion. Do we have a motion? Does anyone have a, what's the word? Make a motion, that motion.
I will make that motion.
Okay, we have Anna and Tanya. All in favor? Great. Thanks. It's nice to see lots of hands, and I appreciate all the conversation and thoughts about our meetings.
If I may, just as one last clarification, the proposed for the 4 meetings a year, would that okay with the committee? The proposed months of February, April, July, and November, it would be the 3rd Tuesday of those months in the afternoon. So it would be a time change because we would be offering the committee lunch and then having the committee meeting afterwards, similar to today.
I would wonder about the July versus August, because we've typically not met in July and met in August. Don't know if anyone else has any thoughts.
Sorry.
And
The
April.
mic on. April to August is a big jump though. Just as a point.
So I don't hear anyone saying no to Amy's question. So we leave it as is. And as it also states, we can call another meeting at any time. In between. Okay. Great. Thanks. We can move on.
I was just gonna say one final thing is that, like, when Heather and I were operating the board and we were the ones responsible going down to the Island Ag Show and doing all those things. Well, now Amy is a dedicated staff person and there's not that same reliance on volunteers and how to collate all the material. It's, it's being done more in-house, or like in the case of some of the other events with the contract with the Food Security Society doing the Family Farm Day event. There's not that same need to have those meetings to make sure everything's on track. But do put a call out for volunteers via your email list for the Island Ag Show, so you can have some, nice neighbors and fun while you're there.
Okay, thanks everyone. Let's move on to number 8, reports. It's already 2:05, so we're going to stick, as always, to food and agriculture related reports from your organizations or as individuals. Starting with Amy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have a few things on my report. Speaking to something that was brought up before, the desire of the Agricultural Development Committee to be able to have input on potential UBCM resolutions of concern if they wanted to review them or if they wanted to forward on a resolution of their own for consideration to the board. The UBCM resolution deadline is always June 15th. So in order to allow ADC discussion and input, I've added in my own calendar a standing agenda item for the April meeting for discussion by the committee and to bring it up there with the resolutions if there are any that want to be advanced potentially through the board to UBCM. If that's okay?
That seems late to me because and I might be wrong, but it always seems like in the past, April's felt late and like there was a sudden scramble and that actually people were talking about doing it like if the ADC talks about it in February, because then it has to go to the board or maybe the ADC needs to think about it. So it might seem better to first bring it up with the ADC in February and then, you know, maybe there's some info that needs to be gathered and we could finalize the decision in April.
Like some things are getting jostled here. Alex and Amy would be able to, aren't UBCM resolutions due from the board like in March?
Yeah.
So, but do they normally go ABICC and then UBCM unless it's an emergency one to go to UBCM? No? Okay.
I maybe check into that, and I'd say April is too late from my experience in the past. There's something to what Tanya is saying.
Yeah. I recall previous requests for UBCM to go to representatives in years that they had select committee budgetary consultations. They wanted them way in before that, which are usually like April. So that kind of something happened in my mind too about that. Yeah.
Okay, so I've amended it to read that I'll bring it for an agenda item to the February meeting for discussion, and then anything can be finalized in April. I'm also going to look at, so there's an Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities, so AVICC, colloquially called. So it's UBCM is all of Union of BC Municipalities, so that's all of BC. AVICC obviously is dedicated to Vancouver Island and then the Sunshine Coast, and they have their own resolution process and their own conference as well. So I can compare timelines for that as well, if you like, and see if there's different timelines for that one. But I have made a note for February and then April. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks. And it's November now, so we can start thinking about it, what we're gonna say in February. Fred, I see your hand.
AVICC submission deadline is February 6th, 2025. So that is set in stone right now. So if you want to have anything in there, such as talking about the ALR rules, that would be good to do that beforehand. UBCM deadline is June 15th, plus or minus. So planning ahead for those two. Thank you.
And I think the point, the reason that it would be beneficial to go through AVICC is that it wouldn't just be an ACRD kind of putting it forward, but then you would also have the support of the entire AVICC, which is, I think, what some of them, they've gone through that channel before. So then when it goes to UBCM, it's not just, oh, the ACRD put this forward, it's the AVICC, but I am not an expert. But that's my understanding. So basically, if we send it to AVICC, we'd be generating more support.
You might be able to introduce it at AVICC so everyone knows about it and the resolution might go from there, but there was only one name of one municipality or regional district on every UBCM. There was only one. It didn't come from a coalition, none of them. It was always led by City of Pitt Meadows, for example.
The other thing too is the Ag Advisory Committee, that's part of their terms of reference is to be dealing with policy work, that it's actually supposed to go through that group who's supposed to be producer members because they're the ones that are usually directly affected by those particular policies and changes, bylaws, that kind of thing.
That's it. Is there any other comments?
Yeah, I continue with my report. That was only the first thing on my report. So I also wanted to let the committee know, I was told about a internal policy through VHA for requirement for mechanical refrigeration at farmers markets. And so I've been following up with literally everyone I could get my hands on at VHA, BC Association of Farmers Markets, our local farmers market, everyone. And the best response I actually got from all of the people that I contacted through public health was from the regional manager of public health for our area. And he stated the following. And this, I'm not sure if it can be included just for the committee's notification in the minutes so that they have reference to it. I'm just going to read it out here. Our general process is to review an individual's proposal and go from there. So for anyone who wants to sell product that's considered high risk, which meat and fish are considered high risk for contamination or infection, they have to complete a form in the guideline for sale of food at temporary food markets. And so that's what he's referencing with an individual's proposal. Where we are confident a proposal can maintain temperatures without mechanical refrigeration, then we will allow ice in a cooler. Where we have concerns that temperatures will not be maintained, we will require mechanical refrigeration. I have connected with the local environmental health officer, or EHO, and she has indicated that she reviews each proposal individually to determine the appropriate requirements. If a producer can assure the EHO that appropriate temperatures can be maintained, the EHO will consider this. So that was the closest that I received from anyone at VHA, that if a producer wants, they can submit an individual proposal to our environmental health officer for our area, but the decision will rest with them. And there is a chance, and the BC Farmers Market Association confirmed this, that some EHOs will make decisions different than others. So that is as good as I could do with VHA.
Yeah, we were just sent a letter saying it had to be done. There was no ask or what can you do different, or your $400 cooler you just bought this summer isn't good enough. So yeah, so we have a little freezer down at the Keep. Thanks.
However, Lisa, I appreciate you doing that, Amy, because now we have that in writing that they said that, because that is different than what I have heard from producers. They said, no, it has to be mechanical. So now we have something that a producer could take and say, here's what they said. Anyways, so thank you for that. And it's unfortunate that it didn't work that way in practice over the summer.
I did let, because I did communicate with our local EHO, environmental health officer, and I did let her know that I would be passing on even this possibility for an exemption. And I would be encouraging producers who want to seek an exemption to resubmit their proposals and ask for an exemption from that rule and state what they would be doing to ensure that their product would remain safe. So I have let her know that may be incoming from people. And the last thing I just wanted to let everyone know is that we had some targeted engagement for the two projects, Food Security Emergency Planning Project and the Agricultural Water Plan projects, with the Council for Agricultural Water Supply, the Coastal Foods Roundtable, and the Alberni Farmers Institute last week. Attendance was good at all three events, and lots of great discussion and great data came out of those meetings. We're talking about agricultural water options, West Coast food security definitions and goals, livestock emergency planning. There is a survey that is out right now for all livestock and crop producers. Anyone who's interested, who's in food production of any kind, is encouraged to let their thoughts be known. And I will ensure that the link is included in the minutes. I'm not going to read it out because it's just a bunch of stuff. But feel free, I encourage the committee both to feel free to fill out the survey. There's going to be an awesome prize up for grabs. And please forward the survey link onto anyone they feel might be interested in filling it out as well. That would be a food producer of any kind. Thank you.
And not just a food producer, someone that has a small holding with animals. So that's especially important for our 4-H members, not necessarily horses. There you try telling a horse person to eat their horse. Yeah, right. Yeah. And marine as well. Yeah. So it is important that we make that distinction and be inclusive of all, because it's the small scale holdings that in the case of an emergency are the ones that potentially get overlooked, which is not okay.
Tanya.
I have a question about something else if nobody has questions for Amy about this topic. Only, and I'm going to say it next just because I have to go and beat the bus home. Okay, Amy, I have a question regarding the motion that was put forward from this committee in May about aligning the bylaw with current ALR regarding agritourism and accommodation, etc., where the regional district was more restrictive than the province. because I saw in the last minutes from the minutes from the October 15th or 16th egg meeting said that the EA meeting on the 16th there was going to be discussion. And I just want to know where it's at or what has come of it.
Alex.
The lunch paid off.
Yeah.
Yes, so that went to the electoral area directors committee on October 16th, I think it was. They debated it at that meeting, and then they passed a motion to recommend that the board direct staff to amend the current zoning bylaw with in areas E, F, and B. So Beaver Creek and Cherry Creek and Beaufort, sorry, to be less restrictive on agritourism and on the keeping of animals, but then to refer that into the budget process for 2025 to look at, you know, how we can align staff resources to do that. We are working on our OCP updates right now, so we do have a heavy, you know, community planning workload, I would say. And if we want to go down the route of amending the current zoning bylaw and looking at all the implications of that, we have to shift the resources around it. It might affect the OCP updates that we have ongoing. So we are going to bring it back to the board as part of the budget development process, but we don't have an answer for you yet on the timelines or you know what that will look like.
Okay, because I bring that up because as part of the motion, like there was urgency and like hoping to expedite these updates to align with provincial policies. And I honestly find it a little bit frustrating because it's November and this was brought up in May and we're kind of at the point where we could do this or this. And I know everything's got to go through its proper channels and whatnot, but I would really like to emphasize like the urgency of aligning this with provincial so we're not more restrictive at our level. And however that can happen from this committee. Like, I mean, I understand this went through as like a report, but this got brought up in May because that's when the new provincial rules came in for short-term rentals, but there was like an exception for agritourism. So it's feeling a little bit like the province is recognizing the agritourism and all these things where it can happen. And it's just, we're stuck here.
Yeah, and I hear you. And you know, the direction we have from the board right now is to update the OCPs, and we've got a 3-year work plan to do that, right? And so we had some agritourism and some animals and some agriculture policies in the draft zoning bylaw that we were working through, and you know that the priorities have shifted somewhat, and you know we're you know, as directed by the board right now, it's working through those 6 OCPs and then picking up the zoning bylaw again and in whatever form that looks like. So updating and amending the current zoning bylaw would be, you know, that interim step. It's just, you know, that we need to find the time to do that, and you know, we'll look to the board through the budget development process for 2025 to make that happen.
Thanks, Tanya. And it's interesting or frustrating is understandable. And I think valid to like recognize that because you're actually doing this as business and you need some information so that you can do your business and plan your business. And so there is urgency when governments are slow. No offense to the ACRD. It's just the nature of government. I see Fred's hand.
Thank you, Chair. I urge the people to make sure that their thoughts are well known to the directors, besides the ones that are currently listening to this conversation right now, of your thoughts and feelings, because they have been passed on in a meeting from myself, but we need help from the other people to make things happen. So please talk to your respective directors. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, thank you. And we are going to move on because we are, you know, moving along. Next is the city of Port Alberni.
Good afternoon. 2 things. One is that 36 hours before grant application deadline was looming, I learned that that might be our last kick at the can for funding through that particular source. So I took a shotgun approach to it and included some funding for the exploration of a seafood culinary institute that would work in hand with Doc Plus and others. Have no idea because I just didn't have time to connect with others about that. We'll know in March if it's successful or not. And that was just one of several items that I put forward. The second is that at the Vancouver Island Economic Alliance Summit, we concluded with a conversation called Vision 2050. And it's an effort to see Vancouver Island as a sustainable region by 2050. And on the way home, the conference was in Nanaimo, I started thinking about our sustainability around food. And I I had to admit that I didn't know, for example, is it still the common idea that will last 3 days if the ferries go down? And I have no idea what small percentage of our food consumption that we're currently making. And I thought it would be good for us to better understand those numbers and then to set targets for moving forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Sounds like a idea for a project coming or something, more discussion. Anna, do you have a?
I'll just say that through the Uplands Consulting, we are doing a community kind of food needs assessment, and some of those questions are in there and percolating around in terms of what is our supply here in the valley, and not just for like food that humans eat, but also for livestock, and so those are being pulled into the discussion and looked at in our reporting process. So
Thanks. Next is School District 70. Oh, Lisa has a quick comment.
Yeah, I think the provincial government is supposed to bring forward those particular numbers on provincial levels on how much we actually produce, but they don't really like to do that because it doesn't look very good. So I don't know when they did the last one, but I think it's been a while. So you might be able to get some reference to that too. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that would be AgriCensus, which doesn't necessarily have all the production anyways. Helen.
Thank you. All right, so SD 70 report. Our next public board meeting is on the 26th at John Howard. You're always welcome to watch that virtually or attend in person. I will be having board elections on that date for chair, vice chair, and other internal and external committees like this one. Our last public meeting was on the 22nd. We have some new policies for review. I always tell you guys, if you're interested, to go take a look on the Pacific Rim website. We have our criminal records check, DPAC, District Parent Advisory Council, and our school packet information's on there too, if you'd like to take a look. We just published our new multi-year financial plan, which is 2024 to 2024-25 to 26-27. I really like it because it kind of gives people an idea where the money's going, how it's coming in, and the process, because I'm internally learning all this stuff all the time. So if you have interest in that and want to know about funding and finances, I think it's a nice kind of easy to read information. So it's on the website as well. New school lunch program is going, it's very, very popular. So we're working out some kinks. I'm sure Claire can talk about that. But it's going well, but yeah, it's popular. I wanted to share about the career programs and the dual credit programs offered through the school district. We have our adult education as well. So the career education programs and the dual credit are run by Greg Freely, and he's our district lead. The school engages with other partner groups like the Justice Institute to bring in the EMR, the first responder course, the life-saving, like paramedic stuff. Sorry. Thank you. Okay, and then the adult education through Dave Marr, who is a district principal, he's also looking at engaging and creating more courses that the community might need. And I bring this up because I know that this committee's talked about the food processing with NIC and so on, and the engagement there and the membership. If you saw a need in the community for meat processors or someone wanting to be a better, learn how to plant better or farm or your aquaculture things or what have you, you could engage with these people, is my understanding, because they want to get offer courses to the community, especially these continued adult education courses. So if you saw something, I thought these are people you could talk to and say, look, I'm noticing my sector, I don't have anybody to butcher my food. Can you guys look at starting a course or something? Or you guys might have some other great ideas. I just want to mention it because it's a way to link and provide what the community needs, you need, and then the school can provide the education. Trying to create courses where, I said that. And also we have these independent directed studies. These are more for students 10, 11, 12. So if they're in a course, like we currently have the Exploring Different Pathways to Earn Credits. We have a tourism course on the West Coast. We have a surfing course, wilderness camping. So these, again, talk to Dave Marr about this for more specifics, but they're creating courses where students are learning how to do these skills, to surf, for example. And if they can provide, they join up with their principal or someone in the school district to meet the learning requirements and the needs of these courses, and then they can get credits. Again, I'm thinking about people that maybe 4-H, they're learning how to take care for animals or plant food or whatever, and they could earn credits towards their graduation. So everyone learns differently and succeeds in different ways. So just wanting to throw that out there. If you've got someone, a young person that is excelling in those areas, pruning trees, whatever it is, these are opportunities. They may not be aware of the parents and other people. So sharing that. Yes, I did that. Yes. That is all I can think to share. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. And good to have youth involved in other opportunities for training for sure. We don't have Island Health or the Ministry of Agriculture and Food. So next is Lisa with the Alberni Farmers Institute.
Yeah, we have our AGM coming up on Thursday. So there will be a few things for discussion. And as Tanya talked about, the concerns about bylaws and restrictions and concerns regarding agritourism will definitely be on the platter. And I know I've been contacted by somebody in Comox that's been concerned about restrictions, bylaws that's coming onto non-ALR land and wanting to know some of the general policies on that. Section 551. I forget the exact wording of that, but anyways, if there's restrictions on lands that are zoned for farm use, you're supposed to become a registered or regulated area in section 551. I can't remember the exact details. Anyways, that kind of information is we're going to be discussing at the Farmers Institute. Thanks.
Thanks, Lisa. And just so everybody knows, anyone can go to these meetings, correct? And you can get your memberships there also. And there's an Alberni Farmers Institute Facebook page if anyone wants more info about that. Alberni District Fall Fair. And
thanks, Heather. We have our AGM also coming up on November the 20th. After that, we'll begin planning all over again. Next year is our 80th fair, so it'll be focused on educating and celebrating, of course, but also on our history. So we'll keep that in mind when we're doing the planning. So thank you.
Thanks. And Alberni Valley Food Security Society, Anna.
And we just had our AGM. Whoop. Woo! First one done, went very well. Our little society is, I think, doing a lot of valuable work in the community. Our gleaning program is officially done for the season, just under 10,000 pounds, so up 242% from the prior year. Rages got a hold of me and they said, "Oh, Anna, we're done. We're so done for the season. We're just gonna throw all these peppers and tomatoes on the compost pile unless you come and get them and distribute them." So on Halloween, I got to, well, actually the day before Halloween, I scrubbed all the aphid spittle off all these hundreds of pounds of pepper. My husband's like, "What are you doing? This is ridiculous." Anyways, I gave out so many peppers and tomatoes to, oh my goodness, that CMHA Food Matters program, the Friendship Center, Sage Haven, Second Stage Housing by Sage Haven, the Bread of Life Center, to Shot. Like, the list is really long. The woman from the Breakfast Club came by because she lives out Sprout Lake, so she stopped in on her way and got 104 peppers for every family and 104 tomatoes, and she had a recipe. And I also gave her all the, they got a hold of me saying, "Hey, we love the Family Farm Day recipe book, and we want to pick a recipe from there and buy all the ingredients locally and put it in the backpacks." So between myself and then Amy, we were able to collate what we had left over, and I think an extra 10 or 20 had to be printed. So it's really cool because she was so excited. She was like, "Anna, this is such a great resource for our community. Look, these are like local recipes and local." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, you should see the activity book that you did." But it was, yeah, exciting. But what was not so exciting is like talking to Travis at the Bread of Life. So he's been there 4 years. When he said, "You know, Anna, the demographics when I started, it was about 70% homeless people, 30% seniors." And he said, "And I tell you, it's like 50-50 now. Like, it's a serious issue." And they had just broken their record, 14,000 meals in the month of October. That is scary. So he was just like, "Anything you can bring us." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I do bring you lots of things." So I think it just, again, instills that need. Like, there's so many people that are food insecure. And it was also great because I still have, a bunch of meat at the Doc Plus that needs to be distributed because my summer student did distribute some, but there's still a lot there. So I was able to connect with all the people in those various organizations. So either by the end of this week or Monday for sure, all that meat will be out in the community, and I will really try hard to take some PR photos, although I really don't like that, but yeah. So, and what else? Yeah, picked up a check to do the food literacy programming, and so excited about that from the Alberni Valley Community Foundation through that BC Prosperity Fund. We received a nice check, so that'll be on the to-do list for next month, figure out the programming, how are we going to engage the community? How are we going to get that good cross section of people that really need some skills in terms of how to cook food, nutritious ones in, like a frying pan, because they don't have a stove, right? They might have an outlet, but a lot of even the low income housing units, they don't have stoves in there. They have a room with maybe a hot plate. So yeah. Lots on the go. Anyways, I'll pass it over to Claire unless anyone has questions.
Actually, we've got Eat West Coast first, but thanks. Good effort. And thanks, Anna, for your doing.
Okay, well, I'll try to be quick and stick to some Clackahoe Biosphere Trust ongoing work because I think Katie will have lots of things to share as well. So one of the big pieces is we are going to be building a new Biosphere Center in Tofino. And we're at, I think, about 70% of our capital campaign funded and hoping to start building next year. A huge component of this community asset is the kitchen, which was one of the highest demands from the community, to have a proper kitchen designed for teaching, processing, preservation. We're going to be having an open house November 22nd. We're having an open house at the CBT offices for people to come and learn about the kitchen, the design, and get input to how it's going to function. So far, some of the programs that are being engaged include North Island College, our Meals on Wheels program, senior and youth cooking classes, the Warriors Food Sovereignty Teaching and Project Program, preservation program, and school lunch programs. So there's a huge need for a space, as well as upcoming businesses or processors that like to try things out. We have some businesses using the Doc Plus space in Alberni, and it's going to be by not quite at that scale, but still going to be a great satellite sister to the Doc Plus is what we really hope. So that's really exciting. What is another big one? The Clackamas Biosphere Trust, starting last year, hosts twice a year regional forums around conservation, restoration, environmental, and work and research. And through part of that work, we have funding to host a very specific forum on climate action in the spring. It's going to be primarily focused around governments and nations, ACRD, of course, St. Amy, and to really try and hone on some specifics around what governments need to support their climate action policies, particularly in their community plans, because we know this is for small communities, this is a really big topic and not a lot of staff to be dedicated towards it. So that will be coming up in the spring as well. And we are also increasing our work with other biospheres across Canada to better understand the climate and the environment and how that specifically relates to food security. So this is really exciting. There's only 2 or 3 biospheres in Canada that are really prioritizing this work. So it's a great chance to work together. And we're fortunate to say Mount Arrowsmith is one of them. So in our area, and it works in very close connection with the CBT support for the Biodiversity 3030 pledges, which a lot of governments, municipalities are taking on as well, and the Indigenous protected and conserved area work that's been going on. And I think those are I have any other ones? I think the last note, and probably Katie can pick up on this a little bit too, is, we're still, through the grant programs at CBT, we still get significant amount of requests related to food programs, whether it's our tens of thousands multi-year projects down to $200 just to someone who's in the community. But yet over the past about 4 years, we've gone from 10 kind of supported ongoing community and school gardens down to 4. So there's a lot of challenges, and land seems to be a big one. So there's a big push to work more with the governments and with private landowners to see where we can actually try and establish some projects. And I think that will be it for me for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Erica. And then we'll be moving along to Claire. Oh, Lisa has a question.
Yeah, just a quick question or advice when you're building something. Being a producer and going down to Doc Plus to see how that facility could help us to process our product. There's no rail system, nothing to hang a side of beef or lamb or whatever. And then the equipment was way too small. The bandsaw was like for a chicken, not for a for a sheep or something like that. So if you're wanting somebody to be able to come and maybe process, if First Nations are allowed to come and process an elk or whatever, deer, whatever, those are the kind of things that would be very helpful.
We appreciate all input, and we know the space will never be perfect for everyone, but I'll tell you that those first designs didn't have a walk-in cooler or a stove that could accommodate a canning jar or kettle. So we have done everything with these programs in mind. So please keep advice coming anytime. Thank you.
I do see that Jen is the next person. on the list for NTC. And I'd just like to say that on November 2nd, NTC was part of a program at Echo Center. We had a day-long event, and it was diabetes education, but it really fascinating because we have an amazing doctor in Port Alberni, Dr. Ian Warbrick, who decided to use Port Alberni as a pilot project. Port Alberni, and I do believe somewhere way up north, got funding to do this small diabetes food first approach, or that was Dr. Ian Warbrick's approach, was let's utilize food, let's utilize local food. And so I brought them, a whole bunch of apples, peppers, and tomatoes to distribute to people that were there. And they had on-site cooking demonstrations, and it was considered a great success. So I just wanted people here to know that, like, their big pushes when they go into the second stage or scaling this program out, they want to really investigate how can we support our local farmers, how can we ensure that, the food is the freshest, not all the associated carbon costs, and just making those connections for the people of our community that are starting to, go into type 2 diabetes. It was great. It was a good success. And I know that's what Jen would have spoken to, or one of the things she would have spoken to.
Okay, so I kind of came as the new Healthy Schools Program Assistant on behalf of Kirsten, who's the Healthy Schools Program Manager. She couldn't come today. Like I said, I'm also still with the Shelter Farm, so I'm kind of doing both right now. But I'm gonna do a little update on the farmers market, which is kind of funny because I've been an inactive member on the board. So I actually just have some notes to share from active board members because I haven't gone in a long time. So I'll be brief, but the coupon program has been really successful this year. So far, $35,000 worth has been redeemed. They also wanted me to mention that it's tough to get accurate numbers because a lot of coupons were distributed, I think, to Sage Haven. And I know they do a lot of shopping outside of town. So we're probably missing a large chunk of cash, like redeemed coupons there, because we can't count those ones. And then there's a note here about the connection with Kirsten Nesbitt, the manager of the program that I'm working with the school district, Feeding for the Future. The farmers market is looking at connecting, finding ways to support families through the summer with the coupon programs. So families through the school, I think distributing coupons through that so that people who access the food programs during the school year don't lose that access to healthy food. So they're gonna pick up that conversation in the new year. There's a new community table. I think that's been going well. It's like a community drop-in. So it's not like, so like different people can come and have a table just for one of the farmers markets kind of thing. I think it was a little bit slow at the beginning, and they're going to do some more work in terms of like promotion for next year. And then 2 special farmers markets happened this year. One was the Garlic Festival, which went really well. And that'll happen again. And then the other was the Spirited Kids Market, which was also really great. And it sounds like Community Futures is interested in sponsoring for next year. So those are some updates for the Spirit Squares Farmers Market.
Thanks, Claire. You might as well just go ahead because we sort of missed you in the SD70. So do you have something from that role as well? Go ahead.
I just started this, this is my second week. So we're pretty early on, and I honestly I don't have that much to say about it, but we will once I know more.
Awesome. Great. So Cecilia, for the doc, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, lots of great, exciting stuff happening at Dot Plus. We're coming out of a busy fisheries season, but right into a very busy planning and organizing season. The expansion project is well underway. We've done some major upgrades to our cold storage to make it more efficient and reliable. Added some racking and shelving so that we can maximize how much we can store in the facility, as it's typically at capacity. So this is really going to increase that to its full potential. We're in the process of doing the same to our blast freezers, just upgrading some of that electrical and infrastructure, help plan for the future and as well as maintain its current needs. The actual building of our new 3,500 square foot expansion is going to be starting any day. We're right now working with engineers and finalizing some of the legwork that's got to go into the foundation to make that build happen. And then that's going to be the home for Nova Harvest as they bring in their high pressure processing equipment that's going to be housed in that new 3,500 square feet. We do have wait lists for our producers and operators who want to expand into any other area that may become available, which doesn't look like there's going to be anything right now. So I'm planning for the future on what that looks like to continue to grow and welcome new businesses as we do. With all that growth, right now we are working with the Ministry of Agriculture and Food to redo our business plan. That's something that they are funding for all the food hubs. So very exciting for us working with a third party to really hone in on where our strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and all of that lie. With that, we are going to be launching a survey next week that I would love to share with the committee here to launch that out. We really want to hear from the community where there's opportunities. We do believe that we recognize where there are, but we also know there's a lot out there that we probably haven't tapped into or recognized. So this survey is going to come out. We want it to get out to as many parties as possibly interested, whether it's farmers or markets or anybody and anyone who might be interested. It comes with a very cool opportunity to win a very big gift basket of prizes, all locally made stuff at the Dot Plus. And also we're going to throw in some concert tickets. So just to sweeten the pot, but just so that you guys are all aware. With that's going to come a new website that I just got a sneak peek at last week and I absolutely loved it. So very fun and looking forward to being able to launch that at the same time. We are launching some new social and marketing to really hone in and make sure that everybody knows what we are and what we offer and what's available. Because I'd say as we've been working heavily on operations, we can do a much better job getting it out there into the community to know that we're there and to know what opportunities lie, whether it's for a mom and pop backyard person who's got a lot of apples they need to process, or a farmer or a market goer who just needs an outlet for a commercial kitchen. There's a lot of opportunity that we need to better getting out there. So lots to come in that way. And then with that too, we're also going to be adding an online booking platform so that members can actually log in, book some time, see what's available, see if there's any conflicts of interest in terms of a shared kitchen, as we do have to take into consideration things like allergens or cross-contamination and whatnot. So yeah, lots of very exciting things. I'm very happy to finally have an opportunity to come here. I do apologize as it's been a conflict, and I'd have to say with quarterly meetings and in the afternoons, hands down, that's going to work very well for me. So I do really look forward to being more of an active member on this committee and really value everything that you guys bring to it because it's so important for our community or for our people and for growth on all levels. And I really think that the Dot Plus can be a big part of that. So thank you.
Thanks. And it's so good to see you here. So nice to hear that you'll be able to join more often. We have Katie and then Patty and then any primary producers. And I just want to say, I know it's getting late. Oh my gosh, it's 10 to 3. So challenging, but I do appreciate everyone coming and having even some notes and just sharing what we have to share. So let's keep on going with Katie.
Okay, we'll do a blitz. Can everyone hear me well? Yeah, okay, awesome. So updates. The Coastal Foods Roundtable, as Amy mentioned, just happened with our workshop with Upland Agricultural Consulting on the first phase of the West Coast Emergency Food Security Planning. And you'll hear more about this, of course, but Some things we identified as gaps that we need to fill is storage and fuel for emergencies, food storage, the barriers that there are to food production on the coast, and a lack of engagement that we had from the fishing and processing sector. So need to work on engaging those groups and bringing them to the table. And something else that we noted is there is work being done to increase community gardens on the West Coast, although was noted as kind of just like a drop in the bucket towards food security. It's a great part of education. It's a great part of connection, but that's not so much towards food security. So those were a few notes that came out of those conversations. Some information I have from some of our primary producers here on the coast, both Tofino Farms and Nice Nursery are two of like our main producers, since we don't have a lot of growers here on the West Coast. And both of them are operating in rentals, either rented land or in their rental suite for Nice Nursery. She's a hydroponics grower. And so they were both just voicing the struggle with renting and wanting support for having really secure, sustainable land leases, things that are not just 1 year or 3 years. So that's definitely something on people's mind, because both of those producers are feeling a real lack of security, and they're some of our only producers here on the coast. So that's important. Interest in having a land matching program out on the coast, like what Young Agrarians does, was brought up. We don't have anything like that out here. So that would be neat to see, because I have heard a number of other people who are trained farmers just in Ucluelet talk about reaching out, trying to find land, and they're just not able to. So seeing some increase in that would be great. And I did hear from one person that they are going to start a farm this spring on their land out near Hitatsu, and hoping to really produce food. So we're wishing them luck, and I'll keep everyone posted on what that means. Let's see, I'll be more brief here. So for Tofino Community Food Initiative, we've got over 140 students every week in the garden at Wick School right now, from kindergarten to grade 7, working with the seniors. So that's been really wonderful. TCFI is also planning to offer Growing West Coast Gardeners again this year, which is our Learn to Grow workshop series. So we'll start advertising for that soon. Hopefully get more people growing on the coast. And, I kept it brief. I'll just leave it at that, unless anyone has questions.
Thanks, Katie. I don't see any hands or questions, so we'll go on to Patty. Go ahead.
Okay, we've pretty much finished up the 4-H year for this year. Project and business meetings are done, record books are in and marked. The year-end celebration is going to be at the end of November at Cherry Creek Hall. Some of you may have heard, because I know it's kind of out there, that our key leader, Charlene Holden, basically retired in September. So I am currently acting as key leader until I get approved by BC 4-H, which is in the works. Sounds like it's going to happen. So that kind of means I'm going to be in charge of 4-H in the Valley. But now that I'm fully retired, I'm kind of got the time. So we're actively planning for 2025. As most people know, there's been a lot of growing pains this last year or two. Coming out of COVID, we kind of started from nothing. And we had 23 members registered this year, but really only about 15 that were active. So we're just in the process of trying to get a bit of a campaign going to get the word out there that we're going to be starting hopefully getting even more people for 2025. We have confirmed leaders for projects in beef and dairy, KV, which is guinea pigs, clover buds, which are the 6 to 8 year olds, dog, horse, and rabbit for next year. I'm really hoping that we'll get a few more leaders and we can start a non-livestock project. So something like outdoor living, horticulture, to get the kids that either don't have or, in some cases, parents don't want them to have a pet. There's a lot of non-livestock agriculture projects in 4-H. So hopefully we'll get some of those going as well. We'll hopefully have a poster ready. This has all kind of come together in the last few weeks. We're scrambling a bit because registration opens December 1st and the year starts January 1st. So if anybody knows anybody that's interested in 4-H, we do have a Facebook page. We have a new email address because the old one was actually not accessible. I'm very, very passionate about the 4-H program. I've been involved as a leader for about 15 years and a parent before that. Both my daughters went through 4-H. Further to what Helen was saying about the schools, one thing that a lot of people don't know is that in 4-H, you can earn up to 6 high school credits toward your graduation through the 4-H program. So there's just so many benefits to this program. So that's kind of where we're at. And I just want to say too, on a personal note, that being involved with this committee this year has been amazing. The amount of information that comes through here is great. I've learned a lot, and I'm going to be tapping into a lot of you. I hope next year to maybe do some presentations for 4-H. Maybe we can come and visit some of you and kind of see what's going on, just so the members get a better idea of what's out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. That was such a nice kind of, sort of like close to this very long set of information that's coming out. Lastly, but not least, any Marine or producers, and Anna has a.
I had a comment for Patty. I'm super happy that you are taking this on and that we're not going to fall into a lull again. At some point in time, not in this meeting, but your non-livestock type projects, would love to discuss more with you. I mean, we do have the Dry Crate Community Garden right in town. We have some communal plots, which I'm sure we could talk about allocating one for 4-H, like if there's potential there. So, yeah, but remind me that I told you. That's why I'm like, oh, I have to say it now. Yes.
Yeah, that's why I kind of hate rushing through, like the information shouldn't just be information. It should be like each person like, oh, let's connect and make things go. But, maybe there'll be half-day meetings if they're only. Okay, I didn't say that. I'll just be a better chair. You'll all get cut off. Are there any producers or Marine producers that want to share anything? Amber, we know you're there too, just so you know. All right, I do not hear anything. So we need a motion that the ADC accept these reports for information.
So moved by Anne.
Thanks, Anne. Seconder, Lisa, and all in favor? Wonderful, thank you very much. Is there any late business? Sounds like there's lots of opportunities, but nobody's going to bring it up right now. Thank you. And are there any questions from the public?
No, there's nobody in the room. There's no questions received by email or in Zoom.
All right, thank you. And I don't believe we have another meeting date set yet. However, I believe it will be in February. Oh, right.
The third Tuesday of February, beginning at noon. Oh, it's February 18th.
February 18th.
February 18th, beginning at noon in the ACRD boardroom.
And the beginning at noon, I'm assuming, is the lunch.
Yes.
Right on.
Meeting probably to begin at 12:45.
Okay. And Anna.
More details follow.
Seeing as we're not meeting till then, I'll just tell you to save the date. The CD Saturday for 2025 is February the 8th at Echo Center from 10 to 2. So that if you want to support your local Vancouver Island seed vendors, do come by on that date.
Thanks, everybody. I very much appreciate your time. We appreciate the meal today. and all the faces that came out. And I will adjourn this meeting at 2:58. Thank you.